episode 2, and welcome. I am Jerri Yoffee.
And I'm Jacob Yoffee. This is Raising Digital Humans.
So AI becoming the new internet.
Let's think about what we got wrong last time.
Exactly. Yeah, because we grew up with dial-up. The permission, you literally couldn't use the phone in your house to use the internet. So that was a way that your parents were involved no matter what, because you had to be like, Mom, I want to go on the internet. You're not going to be able to use the phone for a few minutes. And then they had to be like, yes or no.
I remember my dad yelling at me to get off the internet after like 2 minutes. You would log in, download your email, and then log out immediately because you paid like by the second.
Yeah, it is crazy how the internet has exploded. And them calling the internet the new and Wild West is so true. And now AI is going to take over that.
What's interesting is back then there were so many people trying to predict what the internet would become, how it would affect our day-to-day. Almost all of them are wrong. One of the things they forget is the human component. Who would have guessed that Amazon, you call it the dot-com bubble. Well, they think we're in an AI bubble, which I think is a normal thing to happen with a big technological innovation like this. But how it affects us as a society, I think, is something that we have to think about.
I had a crazy thought just pop in my head, because you think about how something like the internet creates and gives permission to have something like Amazon, and then that move forward to AI. Like, what is AI going to bring about? Like, not just robots, but like, you know what I mean? Like, things that maybe we don't see right now, So that's why I think it is important to not, wait around for, that to happen. Do you know what I mean? Let's not be caught off guard this time because, we have cyberbullying and stuff like that going on. And we kind of, I'm sure we couldn't see it, but bullying has always existed.
Sure.
I think we need to not wait.
I think we also need to call out each other if you see that kind of behavior online. When I grew up, I was a military kid, so we moved every 2 years. So if I was in an area where there was a bad situation, a bully, kids I didn't get along with, it really never got that bad because we were going to be moving soon. And it always felt like every new place you went, you got a true fresh start. Well, now that we have social media and the internet, a lot of kids just can't get away from it. It's just going to follow you wherever you go.
The problem is that whatever's popular, even with adults, the things that are popular trickle down to the kids, like the Stanley Cups. So it's inevitable something like this is really going to take wing and your kids are going to want to be involved in it. But I think that it'll be important now for us to figure out how to be reactive instead of proactive,
Well, we really, like, when you think about the internet and the idea that social media and all this stuff is ruining kids' childhoods, it just seems important for us to be aware that this could happen and we need to get out front of it. We can't completely shun it and just say none of our kids can use it at all because it is here, and we need to really from the get-go have a healthy approach and healthy usage of it.
Yeah, so let's not wait around for the conversations. Let's not wait for those things to happen to our kids. Let's start with having AI conversations before we open the account, for our kids.
Right.
So I think that that's a good way to kind of start. Like, if we're going to interact with AI chatbots, this is what, the rules are.
Sure. Well, you and I have had this discussion a lot since we had our first son, the idea of like the screen addiction for us. I remember you made this comment that it really hit me hard. And we were talking about like, we don't want our son to have a phone until a certain age, and we don't want to, have them just glued to their phone. And we just imagined having to yell at him, like, get off your phone.
Yeah.
You can't be on your phone all the time. And then he looked and said, you mean like my childhood and you were on your phone all the time?
Oh, you mean like I said that to you? I remember saying that to you. Modeling is going to be a big thing.
The actor that plays Jesse Pinkman on Breaking Bad, there was an article recently where he talked about a moment with his daughter where he was on his phone, work email, texting somebody about a job or something. And his daughter really wanted his attention, and it got kind of like, I guess they were argumentative about it. And then he realized what he was doing, and he promised her whenever it was time to be with her, he wouldn't play with his phone, and she was just overwhelmed with emotion and just gratefulness that she would have her dad's undivided attention. And so being aware of how addictive the phones are, I think that when you compound that with AI and the fact we talked in the last episode about, the companions.
Oh, yeah.
The feeling that like, oh, I can explore, I can learn more, I can get more done with AI. I need to be on my phone right now. I need to be maximizing my life. This FOMO situation could even become a larger stranglehold.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And, it's nice to be able to just be able to learn something so quickly. But at the same time, when you watch like just YouTube with your kids or like Hulu or something like that, and like a 10-second commercial comes up and they're like, what is this? Sometimes they have to wait, and it's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean,
Delayed gratification,
don't get me wrong. I'm not like the most patient person in the world. How do we do this? Zev, our 7-year-old, is very interested in coding. And it was interesting because he said to us one day, like, was really upset because he was like, I don't want these robots to take over all the jobs. I don't want this to happen. And I thought that was really interesting.
Insightful
and then at that moment, he kind of wanted to start learning to code from step one. Yeah. And so it's like, I'm wondering if maybe it's important in some ways to start from step one first before we jump into like the big, and I mean, like learn a little bit more about like, maybe we should have started with, hey, this is kind of like the idea of coding, and this is what gaming is, and then show Rosebud or something like that, know? Because I think along the way, we're definitely going to make mistakes.
Yes.
It'll be important for us.
Well, yeah, that kind of makes me think this topic or this phrase, the lead navigator, it's basically like modeling the behavior ourselves. We have to show them and behave in a way that demonstrates the way we want them to do it, using AI and not being addicted to our phones. And then when we use AI, it's not just like, it doesn't just give you answers. It's actually a tool. It's sort of like the idea, if you're going on a trip and you let your kids use the map and kind of be the navigator, you're driving and you're making sure that we're not going to go off a cliff. I think that's the situation here, is making sure that we are showing them the way.
This all can seem so overwhelming. I saw this article the other day that talked about being a parent, in particular millennial parents right now. Nowadays, you don't even want to just send your kids outside because you're not sure, what's going on out there. So it's such a different world. And I think that we all get stuck in these like fear. And I'm definitely one of them. I get afraid of certain things, and I'm realizing like, no, I need to take a step back and learn more about it. It puts more strain on my time, of course. But if we are going to help our kids, not just protect them, but help them become the best of who they can be, I think that these things, unfortunately, are important.
Well, yeah, I think the idea, that the Anxious Generation book by Jonathan Haidt, he mentions the importance of unstructured play.
Oh, yeah.
And it's strange because when you really think about social media, like, and the concept that you have this digital online presence that you're really building brick by brick. Every time you post, every time you're interacting with it, the algorithm is building on itself and you're responding to it. And there's this idea that everything is kind of like permanent, things lasting forever, which it kind of is on the internet. I'm sure there's a lot that disappears, but you're really doing this where kids do need this kind of unstructured free playtime with each other. So kids playing outside and being on sports teams, and like weeks should go by where you don't have to feel embarrassed about you tripped and fell in front of the other kids.
I think that that's going to be important too, for the idea of like kids feeling like your parents aren't watching you every second. You know what I mean? So like kids hopefully can have some free play time and everything. So I think kids need to feel there is a little bit of freedom happening. So I think that that's, a big thing to try to figure out too, because they want to figure out they want to feel like they're in control of some aspect of their lives.
Sure.
So I think that it's important to figure out where you as a parent are in control versus where you can let them be a little bit more free.
That's really the main gist of it. The kids, they need to have some unstructured, unsupervised time in their life. And if they don't get it physically, other kids, they're going to seek it out digitally.
Exactly.
With the 2010s.
Yeah.
You know, the fear, if you think about it, like everything I've read, 1980s is when the parenting kind of became like fearful. You think about like the milk cartons and, you know, kids disappearing, getting kidnapped, and then it's got more and more fearful, where now we're afraid to just let our kids play in the front yard without us seeing them.
I'll be outside and they'll like be out of my sight for a second. I'm like, where are you? They're both like, I'm right here. You know, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, that's the thing. I think, you know, the very first conversation maybe to have with your kids is, of course, safety, but I think also trying to figure out how to let them become who they are outside of this. You don't know who people are.
Right.
Catfishing it's a huge thing. And, you know, so you want to let your kids, you know, figure out who they are before the internet, the new AI being the new internet, kind of is telling them who they are. I guess if we were to sit down with our sons, like, where would you start a conversation with them about AI?
Well, yeah, the first thing that I would talk about are the key distinctions. So the internet gave us access to information, kind of like a library. AI now gives us the answer. We have the LLMs that have been doing that really quickly. Well, now we have these chatbots or these agents that feel like companions. They feel relational, and we must address the fact that these kids might look for connection in a bot if they don't find it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And we just want to make sure that we are there as the lead navigator and understanding that this thing is actually artificial. So we can't allow, you know, loneliness or just let them wander by themselves into this thing and just starting to rely on it outside of us.
Yeah. And I think telling them that, them being able to ask us anything about any of this stuff, about anything in general, is important too, because we wouldn't want them to go straight to AI and ask a question, you know, first. So, I mean, if they have any questions, allow that open opportunity to ask, you know, and if they don't have any at that moment, it's always that way. You know, you'll be like, do you have any questions? And they're like, no. And it's like, okay, well, you know, when you're processing this, we can sit back down again. So I think it definitely needs to be a revolving conversation, because it's going to be constantly changing.
Roles that we can think of ourselves as, like, we need to be a navigator, not a cop, where, you know, we need to help them find and use these tools appropriately.
They're going to be curious, I think, about things that we have discussed. And I think the big question is at this point, you know, is what is an appropriate age, you know, to allow your kid to go on these things. Now, I mean, of course, like, at this moment in time, our 7-year-old is still learning how to, you know, read and write and spell and stuff like that. But he knows that you can talk into the phone.
Yeah. He reads very well. But of course, writing is much slower.
Yeah.
When he grabs one of our phones, and it's surprising how quickly he's able to get the information he wants to get.
A big question, and each of these things are going to be different in each home. I think that you as a parents need to sit down and figure out where you want to start your rules for these things first before we even introduce those to our kids. And even what is the appropriate age to start talking about AI? Like, what is that? Obviously, we've introduced our oldest to Rosebud, and he knows the name ChatGPT, but he's never been allowed to sit and be on those things alone.
We were talking about, like, sitting at the dinner table. What is it that you're doing? What would you do with that time that makes you feel like you? So it's sort of like, you know, we talked about discernment in the last episode. And I think that's really important to understand. This is what makes us humans, what makes us valuable. And it's hard to explain. It's like, you know, when the kids complain they don't want to go to school. And no, you need to do this. This is important.
So I think that overall, the conversation today for this episode is, we already have the internet. We know what the internet is. It didn't exactly sneak up on us. Social media snuck up on us because with dial-up, everything seems like it's like this now. Whereas before, dial-up was like, you know, and then the internet, and then, you know, and so it's not like that anymore. Everything, like we said before, is more instantaneous. And so I think, you know, maybe establishing those family rules, you know, like your family code or something like that would be important. And, you know, one of those things is, you know, to have like a family word that you guys do separate from your phones, away from all electronics, and you guys have that word that you guys share together.
About the safe word.
That's it. You'll notice Jacob will have to lead my words along the way. But yeah, I think that's important, a safe word, added that to all the other things that you're going to add to your family.
Yeah, well, that in particular had to do with the scams that are going on where people were able to record 3 seconds of a child's voice, call the parents' phones, and then it sounds like the kid has been kidnapped and is asking for help. And then they come on and say, we need money or whatever it is. And you believe it because you're... So in that case, you would have to ask, what's the safe word, so that you know that it's really them.
Yeah.
And it's really frightening that we're there. There's a lot of scary things to be avoided. But awareness is the first step. And I, for one, am not going to wait to see what happens and realize what we should do later on. I think being proactive is the only way to go.
Yeah, and I think maybe going a little too far with our protections on these things to start will be important.
Yes.
So, we'll definitely list on our social media, once again, Raising Digital Humans, our Instagram and everything, dinner conversations maybe to have with your kids, open questions, and then some, if you're struggling on ideas of my family code, my family guidance type of thing, we'll post some of those as well. For us, when it comes to technology in general, everything for our boys will be in the open with the family. Computer in a corner of the family room. Right now, our oldest just got a video game, and that's in the family room. So it's just the idea of maybe making some of this stuff a little bit more open and family oriented.
Absolutely. And here is the latest breaking news in AI. The agent era has officially begun. OpenAI has moved beyond chatbots with the release of Operator. This isn't just a tool that talks. It is an agent that can actually use a web browser to book your family's flights or do your grocery shopping. California's SB 243 lawsuit power. As of January 1st, California's new Responsible AI Governance Act is in effect. It's the first law that actually lets families sue chatbot developers if their emotional or companion bots cause harm to minors. This legal guardrails are finally catching up to technology. The Claude Code explosion. Anthropic recently released Claude Code, a tool that allows AI to enter a computer's file system and fix its own bugs. It's currently 90% autonomous. For parents, this means learning to code is officially becoming learning to manage a digital workforce. DeepSeek's disruption. A new model from China called DeepSeek V3 just proved it can match the smartest US models for about 1/10 of the cost. This means superintelligence is becoming cheap and accessible to anyone with a smartphone regardless of their budget. Apple's liquid glass interface. Apple just rolled out iOS 26 with a new interface called Liquid Glass. It uses on-device AI to identify and summarize everything in your life, from your DoorDash orders to your kids' school emails before you even open them. The death of the 404 era. New agentic web standards mean websites are starting to fix themselves in real time. If a link is broken, the AI detects it and rebuilds the page instantly. The digital world is becoming a living, self-healing organism. The Socratic classroom shift. In a major 2026 education report, schools are officially moving toward AI-augmented campuses. Instead of banning ChatGPT, they are using it as a unified interface for professors and students to collaborate on project-based learning.
And I think that's an important thing right there.
It is.
From a parent's standpoint, is if schools are going to be implementing these things, and I think that they need to be having conversations with the parents about how they're going to be implementing them, what the kid is going to be able to do on it and everything like that. Because I think sometimes, if you're trying to do certain things at home, but then they have unfettered access to something at school, it makes it really difficult. So I think parents should be able to have a conversation being had with the parents from the school boards to discuss these things.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence benchmarks. The newest version of Hume AI can now detect micro expressions of boredom or frustration in a student's voice. It's no longer just a calculator, it's becoming an emotionally sensitive tutor. Deepfake watermarking failure. Despite big promises from tech CEOs, new reports show that AI-generated deepfakes are still outrunning watermark detection. The takeaway for parents: we can no longer trust our eyes. We have to trust our discernment. High performers are now using AI to build personal compendiums, taking every podcast, book, and conversation they have and turning into a private, searchable wisdom base. It's the ultimate tool for character building in a distracted world.
Yeah, character building, that's important.
And that's the latest. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.